10. Black Friday Blowout. Black Friday at a Walmart in Florida got way out of hand when a tractor trailer exploded. The trailer burst into a huge ball of fire right in the parking lot, causing the whole store to evacuate. And this was on the most important shopping day of the year. Even though nobody was injured, the people hurrying into the store outside were horrified by the wall of flame and the cloud of smoke blocking out the sky. To make things even more dramatic, the explosion happened at about 5 o'clock in the morning, so it was the early shoppers who had been standing in line who really got the raw end of the deal. They'd been waiting there for the best holiday deals, and instead they got an exploding tractor trailer. The flames spread to the other semi-trucks that were parked beside it, and within minutes the fire had turned into an inferno. Deputies scrambled to the scene of the fire, where they found one guy still stuck inside of his truck. Officers helped him out, the fire department arrived to put out the flames, and by 8 a.m. things were back to normal. How the tractor trailer exploded in the first place is still a total mystery. 9. Walmart Brawl. At an Indiana Walmart, a brawl broke out between a woman and a mother. The mother had gone to the Walmart in the first place to do a bit of shopping with her 6-year-old son. And believe it or not, when the mother began losing the fight, she screamed for her young kid to get involved and help her beat the other woman up. This is a big no-no in Parenting 101. But let's back up a bit. The fight was between Rebecca Mills and Amber Stevenson. Rebecca was the one who initiated the fight. She actually jumped out of her motorized scooter to punch Amber in the face. It turned into a fistfight, with the woman who had just gotten out of her scooter clearly winning. She managed to get Amber into a headlock, and that was when Amber started screaming for her son to get involved. How did the fight start in the first place? According to what Amber said on the Smiley Morning Show after the incident, she had heard the woman in the scooter use a racial slur towards one of the Walmart employees. This was what caused everyone to get so excited and start throwing fists. And speaking of throwing things, Amber's son did try to help his mom out. He began grabbing shampoo bottles off the shelves and throwing them at Rebecca. After the fight, with nobody really being that injured, the police ended up charging Amber with neglecting a dependent, disorderly conduct, as well as contributing to the delinquency of a minor. This last charge was for trying to encourage her son to beat up the disabled woman. 8. Shooting at the Illuminati. In Bakersfield, California, a man fired his gun off in the Walmart parking lot. And while this may be just another day at Walmart, the reason behind the shooting is extremely strange. According to the police, Rodolfo Romo went into the store and began ranting about the Illuminati. He was acting erratic, screaming conspiracy theories, and demanding to speak to the people in charge. When the employees finally got him out into the parking lot, he pulled out a gun and started firing aimlessly. He didn't seem to be trying to hit anyone, he was just firing off the gun for no reason. Rodolfo fired off at least 2 shots, then dropped his gun to the ground and marched back into the store. That was when the police rushed in to apprehend him and take him away. He has since been sentenced to 2 years of probation and not to carry any more weapons. The motive for his bizarre outburst is still unknown, though the Walmart employees are convinced he's mentally unstable. I mean, really, who goes into a Walmart, screams about the Illuminati, and then goes out into the parking lot and shoots their gun off at the sky? 7. Trampled to death. About 7 years ago, Dimitri Damour was trampled to death by a crazed mob of angry shoppers who burst through the doors of a Walmart on Long Island. If you guessed Black Friday madness, you were 100% right. It was Black Friday 2008 at the Green Acres Mall Walmart. A massive crowd had gathered in front of the doors, with everyone eager to get the best deals on DVD players, iPods, and all the other hot electronic items back in 2008. Dimitri was trying to hold the throng of people back as they pushed against the double glass doors. He was a pretty big guy, 6'5", but even a real giant couldn't have held back the 2,000 insane shoppers. They smashed through the doors, pushed Timothy over, and then trampled him to death. Amazingly, not a single person stopped to help. It was absolute pandemonium, like something you would expect to see in a zombie movie. The only person who had the good sense to call authorities was the Walmart supervisor. They phoned the Nassau County Police Department. But wait, the phone call to the police department was 3 hours before the employee was trampled to death. Cops showed up because the shoppers were going crazy inside the store. They used bullhorns to get people outside, but then left after saying taking care of a Walmart was not in their job description. So the employees set up more barricades and closed the doors. The cops were nowhere to be seen, and within the hour a massive crowd formed yet again. This time, when they pushed through the barricades, it proved to be deadly. Several other people were injured as well, including a pregnant woman who was stepped on by people trying to get $50 off a TV. In the end, Walmart paid $2 million to Dimiti's family, though they did so grudgingly, and only so they could avoid criminal prosecution. Do you dare step foot in Walmart on Black Friday these days? Let us know your worst Black Friday experience in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 6. Dumping a corpse. At about 7:45 in the morning on a Tuesday in the small city of Sebastian, a local handyman named Michael Desprez walked into a Walmart. He told the manager of the store that there had been an emergency with his fiancée in the parking lot. The manager helped get a hold of the police, who arrived to find the dead body of his fiancée slumped in the passenger seat of her truck. The truck was parked in front of the Walmart doors. Once the police got the body to the morgue, a medical examiner discovered ligature marks on her neck, as well as a laceration consistent with strangulation. When questioned, Michael told the police that he had been extremely angry with his fiancée, 67-year-old Janine Bishop. In fact, he had been so angry that he had been plotting to murder her for several days before she wound up dead. After a bit more questioning, he admitted that he strangled her from behind with a makeshift garrote that he had put together using a rope and 2 handles. He did it while she was sitting at her kitchen chair, completely oblivious. Then Michael dragged her body onto a bed in their home and slept next to it until the next morning. He then drove his van to Walmart, rode his bike back home, grabbed his dead fiancée's truck along with her body, and dumped the pair at Walmart. His plan was to play it off like he just found her there, suggesting she'd been killed by someone else. But it was a pretty rickety plan, and he cracked under police questioning. Michael has since been charged with murder. 5. Disgruntled employee. A disgruntled employee tried to burn down a Prescott Walmart. Tried and failed. The woman was stopped by the police before she could ever carry out her diabolical plan to not only burn down the Walmart she was working at, but also kill her co-workers in the process. The arrest was made early on a Saturday morning. Ebonice Johnson, 24 years old, was found in the back of the store with a .22 caliber rifle, and according to the police, she had intended to use the weapon with deadly force. Earlier that day, Ebonice had gotten into an argument with her co-workers. She was frustrated with the people she worked with, she hated her manager, and she smashed a cash register before storming out of the store. Once out of the store, Ebonice went home, grabbed a rifle, a knife, and a torch. She then quickly wrote a note on her computer that she was going to kill her co-workers, burn the store down, and die in a shootout with police. She also texted her family members to inform them of her plans. What's really crazy is that none of her family members squealed on her after receiving the texts. The only reason the police got to Walmart in time was that a customer in the parking lot saw Ebonice with a rifle and told the manager. It was the manager who called the police, who luckily arrived in time to stop Ebonice before she killed somebody. She's since been booked on premeditated attempted homicide, weapons misconduct, and attempted arson of an occupied structure. 4. Abducted in the parking lot. It was 10 o'clock at night when the police responded to an incident at a Virginia Walmart. The Franklin police say that a man walked up to somebody, asked them if they had any gas money, then showed them a gun. Using the weapon, the individual forced their victim inside the Walmart center, straight to the ATM machine. It's pretty unusual for someone to be abducted into a Walmart, but that just happened to be the closest ATM. After the victim gave the man his money, that was when the real craziness started. The kidnapper then forced the guy he just robbed to drive him to North Carolina. Thankfully, the kidnapper did eventually let his victim go. The poor guy was shaken and confused, but at least he was alive. All he'd wanted was to do a bit of shopping. The kidnapper has since been identified by the police as Junior Devin Williams. The police were able to get arrest warrants and track him down, and he's now being held at the Hertford County Jail. His charges include robbery, use of a firearm during a robbery, and abduction. 3. Dirty children. A pair of children described as extremely dirty were taken into protective custody after their parents broke out fighting in the Walmart parking lot. According to the police that responded to the incident in Newville, Cullen Kellenson and Tiffany Sue were in a flatbed truck screaming at each other. Their argument got so heated that the people in the parking lot that overheard everything grew worried about the children sitting in the back of the truck and called the cops. Apparently, the fight was over infidelity. Cullen was accusing Tiffany Sue of cheating on him. But here's why the cops took the children away immediately. First of all, the couple had firearms and ammunition within reach of the kids. Either of the children could have easily grabbed a gun and shot somebody. Secondly, the kids were ridiculously dirty. One was described as having an overflowing diaper, soaked in her own excrement to the point that her clothes were dripping with it. The other kid was also filthy. To the cops, it was pretty obvious that the couple was not taking proper care of them. Things got uglier still. When the cops tried to take away the kids, Tiffany Sue got belligerent and angry. The police had to arrest her, though she resisted as hard as she could. She ended up getting booked on charges of threats, assault, resisting arrest, possession of a weapon, and endangering the welfare of children. 2. Shoplifting shootout. In Harris County, Texas, an ordinary day at a Walmart turned into a deadly shootout. Gunshots were fired between shoplifters and police deputies in the parking lot of the supercenter. It happened at about 10:30 at night, after deputies were called in to deal with a suspicious vehicle. Walmart employees had recognized a pair of shoplifters. The suspects were a man and a woman whose faces were posted on a flyer put up on a board by Walmart security. The suspects had previously stolen from Walmart and were not allowed in the store. The thieving couple had gone into the store, stole a bunch of items, then went back to their car, and that was when the cops showed up, just as they were leaving. But these were some serious shoplifters. They would not be taken down easily. When the deputies tried to apprehend the suspects, one of the men pulled out a gun and began shooting. 2 deputies returned fire, immediately killing the individual. The female, along with a third male suspect, fled the scene as quickly as they could while the shooting was going on. But they were later apprehended driving near Interstate 45. In the end, 1 man was dead, 2 people were arrested, and 2 officers were placed on mandatory leave. And all so that a couple of petty criminals could steal some everyday items from Walmart. 1. Knocked out cold. A fight between a Walmart employee and a shopper went viral after the shopper got knocked out cold on video. We don't know exactly what happened to spark the fight, but we know it happened at the Walmart in Inglewood, either in Ohio or Florida. To be honest, probably Florida. The customer was unhappy with the employee, so he rammed his shopping cart into his legs and spat right in his face. Then, thinking he had won the day, he tried to stroll out of the store with his bag of purchases. The employee said not so fast. He charged at the customer but was held back by his fellow employees, but managed to break free. Before the customer could get out the door, the employee caught him with a hard right hook to the head. 1 punch and he was down for the count, while the other customers shrieked and an alarm blared in the background. Sadly, we don't know if any arrests were made in this situation or if the employee lost his job. But even if he did lose his job, well, he still got the last laugh.
Number 10. Home invasion gone wrong. Samantha Allison Weiner, an 18-year-old woman from Ponte Verde Beach in Florida, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection to a burglary gone wrong. It happened on September 21, 2020. Officers were called just after 1 o'clock in the morning to a burglary in progress and shots fired at a home near Beach Boulevard. When police arrived on the scene, they found Ezekiel Trey Archuleta dead in the front yard of the property. Somebody had shot the young man to death. But here's where things get really twisted and confusing. The man who was killed was not the victim of the home robbery, but rather the robber himself. It was the guy living in the house that shot him dead. Samantha was the orchestrator behind everything. Her ex-boyfriend was the one living in the house, and she wanted revenge on him. Samantha had asked multiple people to rob Roman Gerald Stewart Jr. in retaliation for him dumping her. After a lot of asking around, Ezekiel was the one who finally agreed to do the deed. But what he didn't realize was that when he moved in to rob Roman's house, Roman was locked and loaded. Roman killed Ezekiel before he could even get inside. And even though Roman got away with it on Florida's Stand Your Ground law, Samantha did not. She may not have physically been at the scene that night, but the fact that she organized the whole thing makes her just as culpable in the eyes of the law. Number 9. Stealing from the autistic. This one is really cringeworthy. A woman from New Orleans has been given 20 years in prison for pretending to be a lawyer in order to loot the trust fund of an autistic man. Her name is Christina Galjor, and she pleaded guilty in 2021 to the theft of over $25,000. She also pleaded guilty to 3 counts of practicing law with no license. And as if robbing an autistic person wasn't terrible enough, she had 5 other victims as well, with whom she had collected at least $14,500 from. And she did all of this while pretending to be a lawyer. She used the money she stole from these people to fund exotic vacations and luxury goods for herself. In 2015, the autistic man's parents tragically died. They left him a multi-million-dollar trust fund and a home in New Orleans on Nashville Avenue. It was a terrible loss for the man, and they surely would have traded all that money just to see his parents again. But Christina didn't care about his money or his feelings. In 2016, she introduced herself as a lawyer to the victim. She gained his trust, then convinced him to hand over power of attorney over all his assets. Then, slowly but surely, she started draining him like a vampire. She purchased a new Jaguar, hosted fancy parties, went on shopping sprees, all while the unwitting victim was still grieving his parents. In 2017, she convinced the victim to hand over his house. She told him the only way he could avoid losing it was if he gave it over to her. This would be the big push that eventually had the victim go to the police, who arrested Christina in December 2019. She had 3 good years of robbing this poor man, and now she'll spend the next 20 locked behind bars. Number 8. Kidnapping the wife. 2 people were left dead after a millionaire hired some men to kidnap his wife. It was something straight out of an episode of Fargo. This happened in the town of Lafayette, southern Louisiana. The year was 2017, and in early August, Sylvester Bracey and Arsenio Haynes prepared to do some kidnapping. The 2 men dressed themselves up as workers from an appliance store, armed themselves with semi-automatic handguns, and forced their way into Shonda Handley's home. They put a bag over her head and threw her in the back of a van. But things had gone wrong right from the beginning. A neighbor and her daughter happened to be visiting Shonda when the kidnappers showed up. They handcuffed these people and left them in the house. Already, they were off to a rough start. Then, an off-duty deputy saw the van driving on the shoulder of the road to skirt around traffic. The officer alerted his colleagues, and the kidnapping was foiled. There was a high-speed pursuit. The police chased the van until it eventually hit a dead end. The kidnappers then abandoned the vehicle and left Shonda trapped in the back. When they tried to elude the police by swimming through a canal, they drowned. In the end, it all came back to Lawrence Handley. He had cooked up the whole scheme so that he could swoop in at the end and save his wife from the two bad guys, thereby winning her affection back. The two were married, but not exactly together, and this was his secret plan to get her back in his arms. Sadly for the two men he hired, they both wound up dead in a canal. His wife now hates him more than ever. Plus, Lawrence is looking at 15 years in prison for hiring kidnappers. Number 7. Lawnmower DUI. In summer 2020, a man from Greenwood, Delaware was arrested on his 5th DUI. But there was something a little unusual about his arrest. You see, police responded to calls at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon of the subject acting disorderly in the grassy area on the side of the farm road. As it turned out, Ralph Cahall was absolutely wasted. Ralph had drunk himself into a stupor, climbed onto his lawnmower, and went for a drive. Since he already had 4 DUIs and didn't feel like getting another one, he thought he could get away with it by driving a lawnmower instead of a car. But that's not really how it works. Even if it is a lawnmower, it's still considered a motor vehicle. It's not like Ralph couldn't have had a few beers and drove his lawnmower on his own property, but the fact that he was going through yards, acting belligerent, and annoying the neighbors, well, that had him hauled off to jail for his 5th DUI offense. He was also charged with resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and criminal trespassing because he drove through people's lawns. Number 6. Failed truck heist. In November of 2021, an armored truck driving along a freeway in California spilled some of their cash. It happened on a Friday, just before 9 o'clock in the morning. The California Highway Patrol began getting 911 calls that there was actual money scattered across a part of the Interstate 5, backing up traffic. The truck had lost a significant amount of cash, and it was all over the road. When people saw what was happening, they got out of their vehicles like a bunch of savage animals and scrounged to get as much of the cash into the pockets as they could. After all, who could just leave all that money lying on the road? But here's the thing about it. All the people who picked up the cash are now thieves. Just because it was on the road didn't mean it was fair game. It came out of an armored truck. The money still belonged to wherever the armored truck was taking it. When the cops arrived, most of the motorists did return the money they'd picked up from the ground, but several people were seen speeding away from the scene with their pockets stuffed full of $1 bills. 2 people were actually arrested for theft on the spot. These 2 individuals had accidentally locked themselves out of their car in their mad dash to pick up money, then got caught since they couldn't drive away. What would you do if you saw an armored truck lose its cash on the highway? Would you steal as much of it as you could and drive away? Or pretend there weren't thousands of dollars blowing across the street? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe before the end of the video. Number 5. Eaten alive. A Florida burglary suspect fleeing from the police in November of 2015 was foiled by something he would have never expected. The burglar, a man of just 22 named Matthew Riggins, was suspected of burglarizing homes in Florida. He had gone on a home invasion rampage, only to find himself in hot pursuit by law enforcement officers. To try and throw the cops off his trail, Matthew waded into a lake. He was hoping that if he hung out in the lake long enough, the police would leave the area and he could get away with his loot. Now, if you live in Florida, a lake is probably the last place you want to be hiding. The burglar was attacked and partially eaten by a massive alligator as he was hiding from the cops. When his body was later discovered and an autopsy was done, it was determined that he drowned during the alligator's assault. A necropsy done on the alligator showed parts of Matthew's body in its stomach. Number 4. Accidentally murdering the murderer in the middle of a murder. It was January 2022 when something both strange and tragic happened in West London. A man drove over a man and a woman, but he did it with good intentions. The 26-year-old driver was trying to stop the man from stabbing the woman to death. You see, the attack was already underway. A man had a knife. He was repeatedly stabbing the woman with it in front of horrified onlookers in Chippenham Road, and there was nothing anybody could do to stop it. It was horrific. There was blood everywhere, and the bystanders were too afraid to take the knife from the deranged lunatic. But not the guy in his car. When he saw what was happening, he steered his vehicle directly into them. His plan was to run over the man with the knife, thereby saving the woman. but he accidentally ran them both over. Her coat got stuck under one of the wheels, and she went underneath the car. Yes, he ended up killing the murderer, who was in the middle of committing a murder, but he also ran over the woman he was trying to protect. It came out later that the man with the knife was Leon McCasker, the ex-boyfriend of Yasmin Chikafi. By the time the car ran them both over, Yasmin had already been stabbed to death by Leon. Both died on scene, in what was a horrible incident of domestic violence at its worst. As for the man behind the wheel who was just trying to help, he was branded a hero by the family of the victim and never charged with murder. Number 3. Burglary fail. A robbery went very bad in Washington back in December of 2021. James Smith was home with his sister when a pair of robbers kicked in his back door just after 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a Thursday, and the rest of the neighborhood was quiet. Jeremy doesn't know why they picked his house, located about 45 miles from Seattle in Spanaway, and he didn't care. When he saw that one of the men was armed, he pulled out a gun and shot them both. One of the burglars was left unresponsive on the floor, while the other escaped the property with a bullet wound. The robber who escaped still hasn't been found and is considered at large. So far as the cops know, he is currently walking around with a bullet lodged in his body somewhere. The first robber, who was the one laying unresponsive on the floor, ended up dying there in the house he was trying to rob. As for Jaram, he was never charged with murder or manslaughter because he was only defending himself. He didn't go looking to shoot anybody, and he's terribly shaken up about having to kill a man. But when 2 strange men kicked open his door in the middle of the night, it was all he could do to protect his family. Number 2. The Craigslist Hitman. A man from Colorado has been given 48 years in prison because of one dead woman, one very poor choice, and a Craigslist ad for a hitman. His name is Joseph Lopez, just 23 years old, when he pled guilty to second-degree murder. The victim was Natalie Bollinger, killed on December 29, 2017. Lopez put a single bullet straight through her head, execution style, as she knelt in front of him. According to a statement from the Adams County District Attorney's Office, he had done it in response to an ad on the single section for the hit. But here's where things get totally wacky. The ad for the hit was put there by Natalie. She had put out an assassin's contract on herself. It came out during the trial that Joseph and Natalie exchanged dozens of text messages before he drove to her apartment, picked her up, and killed her. He had even answered the ad pretending to be an experienced hired killer. After texting for just 2 hours, the pair met in real life. Obviously, this never should have happened. Even if Natalie had put out a hit on herself, Joseph was a real psycho for going along with it. All he even got out of the deal was to take someone's life, a free gun, and the measly contents of Natalie's purse. When an autopsy was done, it became clear that she had an almost lethal level of heroin in her system, so she was drugged and not in her right state of mind. Yet, instead of alerting the police and getting Natalie the help she deserved, Joseph allowed himself to become the Grim Reaper. Number 1. LA Hit and Run. On February 20th, 2021, a homeless man in Los Angeles decided he needed to steal a truck. It was a big success, and a crime he might have gotten away with. That is, if not for the fact that as he sped away, he ran over a woman with his truck. He didn't just clip this innocent bystander with a stolen truck. He drove right over her and severely injured her. It happened late at night, with the homeless man stealing a 2001 Toyota Tundra. This is a big truck, not something you want plowing into as you're walking across the street. He struck a female pedestrian who never even saw it coming. She was rushed to the hospital and later released, but she'll be traumatized and scarred for the rest of her life. Meanwhile, the thief knew he was in big trouble. He abandoned the truck before he could ever sell it or get anything out of it, and ran away. When police checked the truck for DNA evidence, they were able to identify the man as Tajon Wright Freeman, a person with a history of felonies. He was already a wanted man, even before he ran over a pedestrian and then took off into the shadows.
Number 10. The Sydney River McDonald's Murders. On May 7, 1992, the unthinkable happened at a McDonald's restaurant at Sydney River, Nova Scotia. A trio of friends walked into the establishment with the intention of robbing it. Instead, they ended up murdering 3 people and disabling a 4th. It was one of the biggest high-profile murder cases in Canadian history at the time. What made it so crazy was how young these kids were, as well as the fact that one of them was an employee at the fast food restaurant. Derek Wood was an 18-year-old kid working at McDonald's. He and his 2 buddies, Freedom Daniel McNeil and Darren Muse, broke into the store after it was closed. They entered through a basement door that Derek had left slightly ajar earlier in the night. When they went in and discovered that there were 4 employees still inside, some kind of madness took over these boys. They murdered the 3 victims with a collection of terrifying weapons, including a .22 caliber pistol, a shovel handle, and knives. After they finished massacring everyone in the store, they made off with the cash. They had gone in expecting to find a huge payout of over $200,000. Instead, they got $2,017, which is definitely not worth killing people over. This crime was committed in a very rural town, in a small place in Canada most Canadians don't even know about. The location isn't even around anymore. It was demolished in 2000 and is currently an empty lot. These boys had no chance of getting away with the crime. It wasn't like they could just drive away and blend into the city. They were known by the community and by the people they slayed. All of them were given sentences of 20 years. Darren Muse was paroled in 2012, while Derek Woods' parole application was rejected in 2015. Number 9. Revenge slaying. At a McDonald's restaurant in Edmonton, North London, a 16-year-old catering student was brutally murdered in what authorities have described as a revenge execution killing. According to Judge Michael Coombe, Danny Westmacott was the victim of a vicious murder carried out via execution. The death of Danny started at a children's party in McDonald's. On the night of the murder, Danny and another teen got into a very silly argument. The other teenager, Noel Sales, didn't like the way Danny was looking at him and the girls he was with. The teenager wanted to be a tough guy. He called Danny out for really no other reason than to start a fight. But the bully lost the fight. Danny wrestled him to the ground and kicked him until Noel looked like he was going to cry. Noel, who was only 15, then phoned a friend and told them to bring a knife. Noel went out of the restaurant, met with 3 other friends, and then went straight back inside and started stabbing. He approached Danny from behind and stuck a knife in his back, killing him almost instantly. This tragedy goes to show that even if you win a fight, you often still lose. It's always better to avoid confrontations, especially with teenagers, at McDonald's. Number 8. Dead in the fridge. A worker at McDonald's was crushed to death. It happened in southern Poland at a McDonald's branch in the city of Ostrowiec Świętokrzyskie. The woman's identity is not being given out for privacy reasons, but we do know how she was crushed. She had gone into the enormous walk-in refrigerator when a shelf full of products fell on her head. The entire shelf toppled over, taking the woman with it and crushing her small body as if someone had dropped an anvil on her. She wasn't discovered for a full 10 minutes until another worker opened the refrigerator and found her pinned beneath the shelf. Sadly, this woman lived her entire life, just over 3 decades, to perish on the floor of a McDonald's refrigerator. It sucked big time, and we still don't know how it happened. The restaurant was shut down and an investigation was launched, but we still don't know why the shelf fell. It looks like it was just one of those freak accidents, something you can't see coming. Number 7. Death by electrocution. In Belfast, Northern Ireland, a young student was electrocuted at a McDonald's while trying to use the bathroom. Sierra McGinley collapsed on the bathroom floor stone cold dead after she touched an exposed live wire on the hand dryer. She hit the button on the annoying hand dryer, and in return, it gave her an electric shock that she would never recover from. This was a tragic and rather bizarre accident, but what made it really despicable was that the owners of the particular restaurant franchise already knew there was a problem with the dryer and failed to act. There had already been at least 3 complaints about the hand dryer from people using the bathroom in the 2 weeks prior to the fatality. One of the complaints was made just hours before Sierra's death. If managers had listened and done something to fix the hand dryer, the young woman might still be alive today. Sierra was a language student at Queen's University in Belfast. Her death came just as she was out celebrating the end of her exams in June. The celebration brought Sierra and her friends for a late-night burger, and washing her hands ultimately cost the woman her life. Number 6. Toxic fumes. In Georgia, a senior citizen died after visiting the bathroom of a McDonald's restaurant. She was 80 years old. Besides her, 9 other people in the restaurant became sick. there was a carbon dioxide leak that nearly cost all these innocent people their very lives. The leak happened at a restaurant in Pooler. For anyone who knows anything about soda machines, you'll know that carbon dioxide is pushed through plastic tubing from a cylinder to the soda machines. When investigators looked at the restaurant, they found dangerously high levels of carbon dioxide leaking into the bathroom through the walls. But here's where things get really scary. According to Pooler Fire Chief Wade Simmons, similar leaks have occurred at other restaurants in other cities because the lines go through the walls and into the ceilings. It's not that unusual for one of them to leak fumes. In this case, all that happened was the bathroom got sealed while the investigation was ongoing. The restaurant wasn't even closed down, and this is despite the fact that 10 people were exposed to so much carbon dioxide that one of them dropped dead and the rest became violently sick. 3 of those 10 people were firefighters investigating the fumes. They themselves became sick and had to be sent to the hospital. What do you think should happen to a restaurant that is known for poisoning its customers with toxic carbon dioxide in the bathroom? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Number 5. The Jiayuan McDonald's cult murder. On May 28, 2014, tragedy struck at a McDonald's restaurant in Jiayuan, China. A woman named Wu Shuan was sitting at a table inside the mall McDonald's waiting to meet her husband and their young son. As she was sitting there, a group of 6 people entered the restaurant. They claimed to be missionaries and ordered everybody to hand over their phone numbers. It was extremely bizarre. When they asked Wu for her number, she declined. The missionaries became so angry that they used mops to beat her. What began as a very strange day at McDonald's ended in a vicious killing. They continued beating the woman with mops, smashing her with a chair, and even stomping on her face and head. One of the attackers was quoted as screaming, "Die, evil spirit," while another warned other customers not to interfere or they would die too. Nobody interfered, and Wu died from her injuries. But the attack was captured on camera, and every single one of the attackers were quickly arrested by the authorities. Chinese police said that they were members of a cultic organization known as the Church of Almighty God, or Eastern Lighting. When these murderers were taken to court, they showed no sign of remorse. They continuously called Wu a demon, saying they had no choice than to destroy her because she was evil. The Chinese government had already banned this organization from functioning. They were described as psychopaths and complete lunatics who had no business operating in society. The Chinese government had no problem putting 2 of the defendants to death by execution. In February 2015, the other defendants were given life in prison. Number 4. Rage in the drive-thru. In Jacksonville, a woman was shot dead in the drive-thru of McDonald's on Bay Meadows Road. It was horrific by every account. The woman was sitting in her car, minding her own business and ordering her food, when the assailant came creeping up around her vehicle. The guy leaned into her car and shot her at almost point-blank range. The bullet ripped apart her neck and head, and she bled and suffered for quite some time before eventually dying at the hospital. Why would somebody do such a horrendous thing? It was a disgruntled boyfriend. A man named Rashid Al-Karim was eventually tracked down by the police and arrested for murder. It took a jury no more than 90 minutes to find him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. He had been stalking the victim, Jamie Marie Roque, and threatening to kill her for months. But the police could never do anything because Rashid hadn't actually done something actionable. But when he did do something, he did it big, with a bang. Now Jamie's dead, and he's behind bars, probably for life. Number 3. Too big of a bite. Darren Bray died while trying to eat a McDonald's cheeseburger. Darren, a father to 3 children, choked to death when he tried to consume the whole burger in just one mouthful. The 29-year-old had been showing off to his friends. They were on a night out, they got the munchies, and they went to the nearest McDonald's. Darren ordered a cheeseburger, then told his friends, "Watch this." He put the burger in his mouth and tried to swallow it. His friends laughed and howled. Then things turned grim. Darren went blue like a Smurf and started to choke. Nobody was sure what to do. These guys weren't exactly doctors. Darren's friends watched helplessly and horrified as he died. One of them tried to slap him on the back to clear his airway, but it didn't do any good. Darren was coughing, gurgling, and making noises that would give you nightmares. None of his friends had any idea how to perform the Heimlich maneuver, which very well could have saved his life. Instead, they all just stood around and waited for paramedics to arrive. When they got there, the paramedics performed CPR and tried to restart Darren's heart, but he was dead. The Cardiff Coroner's Court reported that Darren died from a blockage to his airway. So, let this be a lesson, folks. Please chew your food. Number 2. The McDonald's toilet. In Germany, a 48-year-old man went to get lunch at a McDonald's. He was a gas station attendant working across the street who loved himself a big, juicy burger for his midday snack. But this would be the very last snack he ever had. He went into the bathroom of the McDonald's and never came out again. The truly shocking thing is that nobody found his corpse until the next day. It was after lunch that his boss started asking staff at the McDonald's if anyone had seen him. He knew he went to get lunch and then never came back to work. And that was not like him at all. The McDonald's staff checked the surveillance footage. They found that he had entered the store, but never left. It was at about this time that everybody had figured out what happened. They crept into the bathroom, where they found a single cubicle with the door locked and a very bad smell coming from beyond. The man had gone to eat his lunch, became overwhelmed, and needed to use the bathroom, and died right there on the spot. We don't know the exact cause of death, but chances are pretty good that he had a heart attack. After all, he worked at a gas station and ate most of his lunches under the Golden Arches. And number 1, dead and unnoticed. In Hong Kong, a homeless woman entered a McDonald's very early on a Friday morning. She found herself a table in a dark corner near the bathroom and sat down. And there she stayed, unmoving, throughout the entire day. Nobody kicked her out or even really noticed her. Then at around 1:20 in the morning on Saturday, her head suddenly hit the table. That was when she died. But it looked like she was just sleeping. It took another 7 hours before somebody finally realized this woman had dropped dead. Customers were coming in and out of the restaurant, sitting at the table beside her, eating their food, and not realizing that they were dining with the dead. Police and paramedics finally came to remove the body at about 8:30 in the morning. They didn't find anything suspicious about her death. She was around the age of 60, with no belongings except a ratty old bag and a wallet with no identification or documents. Nobody even knows who this woman was or where she came from. Authorities figured she must have known that she was dying and came in from the street to sit down at a comfortable table and expire in peace. What's the most insane thing you've ever seen go down at a McDonald's? Let us know about it in the comments, and thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to check out more awesome stuff from the channel. See you next time.